Hi, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. So, was it 2 days ago? On the 15th of June, the same day, I got 2 letters. One from the Sussex County Council, which I think was signed by the Director of Child Services, and the other one was from the Department of Education, about Aleena's help letter. As expected, their response is, well, the strange thing is the bit I thought they would get uppity about was the fact that I described the ADPR, the review and plan and all that over 4 terms, so that the finance for SEND children who have already been diagnosed, SEND children by a paediatrician or clinician, means their funding takes a year, whereas neurotypicals takes on day one. So I called it, verging on indirect discrimination, which of course would be against the Equality Act 2010. But none of them mentioned it. None of them quantified it or tried to say, "Oh no, it's not. You're wrong." So the fact that they didn't even attempt to say that makes me think that, well, they understand that it probably is, and that they couldn't legally say it. I don't know, but why wouldn't they mention it? Oh, I think the Director of Child Services, Alison Jeffries, does hint at it when she, when she says about, I take the letter in the spirit that it was intended, as if, I said something tragic. So this is, thank you for your email of the 4th of April 2023, sharing your suggestions for ensuring that all autistic, disabled and neurodiverse children are successful in life. I absolutely recognise that you are wanting the best for your daughter and others like her, and I have taken the letter in the spirit it was intended. You raise some specific queries which I will answer in turn. First, you share some statistics about prospects and support for children in school. These were actually taken from the government's, I can't remember the agency now, but I've read it out, isn't it? And so this is government, it's not from Google or somebody else. I recognise the seriousness of those statistics, and that behind every number is a child, young person or adult. I will assure you that East Sussex are responding to the National Autism Strategy through our Autism Partnership Board. This work involves children and adult services, is identifying the good practice we can build on and gaps we need to work together with partners to address. Well, I've already given you some, so are you going to work on them? Sorry, that was me interjecting. The voice of experts by experience is central to this work. The 6 themes in the National Autism Strategy are the right ones and are aiming to achieve the societal shift we need to see for autistic children, young people and adults to receive the reasonable adjustment they're entitled to be able to have a sense of belonging and experience success in their community. But I've told them how, it's taken a year before Aleena's going to get her funding, and then she's going to be even more behind than... And then, well, I don't understand why she doesn't I've already acknowledged that it's not working, whatever you're doing. You rightly acknowledge that with autism in schools, all teachers and sports staff should be knowledgeable, skilled and confident to understand and meet their needs. The recent published DFE, the Department of Education, Special Educational Needs and Alternative Provision Improvement Plan has also highlighted the need to upskill school staff to adapt teaching appropriate to pupils with SEND, with a number of initiatives planned to address this, so at least they did take that on board. As a local authority, we remain committed to retaining a central service class, communication, learning and autism support service to develop and improve our inclusive practice for neurodiverse pupils in East Sussex schools. They don't seem to do very much by what I've seen. The specialist teaching staff in this team offers whole school training covering a range of SEN. They also provide advice and recommendation to plan personalised support for individual pupils. Staff at Aleena School have received training from class on autism, pathological demand, avoidance, PDA, and neurodiversity. There has also been ongoing input from the team to support Aleena's transition to the reception class and to inform the planning and review of a personalised additional needs plan, A&P. The DFE SEND Code of Practice sets out the duties schools should follow to identify and make provision for pupils with SEND. The expectation is that with well-targeted resources, well, they're not well-targeted if they're a year late, and reasonable adjustments, most people with SEND, including many pupils who have a diagnosis of autism, will make progress within a mainstream setting without the need of an educational health care and needs assessment, EHCNA. For others, an EHCNA may be necessary. Funding is funding. If you're going to make out that every child gets £5,000, this is not enough for neurodiverse children, because we already know that. Because when neurodiverse children get to go to special school, they get 10,000. So anyway, I don't know what I was expecting. This is why people don't bother, isn't it? I can confirm that Aleena's school, Shinewater, submitted an EHCNA for Aleena on the 20th of March 2023. The LA agreed to carry out the assessment on the 20th of April 2023. As part of this process, the SEN assessment and planning team will collate further information, including statutory reports from the educational psychologist services and other professionals required. The LA will then consider the evidence and determine whether an EHC plan is necessary. This doesn't mean adding 20 weeks. Yeah, remember, a term is 6 weeks. The time frame for this process are set out in the SEN Code of Practice, with the expectation that from the date that the LA receives the request to the date of the final plan is issued should take no longer than 20 weeks. This may seem a long time, but the time frame is considerable as realistic so that we can follow the various stages required to agree an assessment, gather and consider evidence and information from a range of professionals, make decisions and create a plan. You also raise concerns about occasions when Aleena has been sent home from the school due to behaviours which are likely to be linked with a profile of ASD. As the school staff develop their knowledge of Aleena and work in partnership with you, they will be able to identify triggers and behaviours which may indicate if she is feeling unwell or becoming anxious, and be proactive in planning to manage those. I am aware that the school have recently developed a sensory room to respond to her needs. By sensory room, that isn't the tent they're talking about, is it? I know they've got a tent. I don't know about a sensory room. Finally, in respect to your query and suggestions about funding available to schools for additional provisions for pupils with SEND, I can clarify that each year the DfE allocate a finite sum of money to each LA to distribute across every school to provide additional support for pupils with SEND. The amount each school receives is known as the SEN notional budget, and the value of the budget varies from school to school according to a range of factors. The DfE's expectation is that the funding allocation to each school will provide up to 6,000 for pupils with SEN with the most complex needs, not 6,000 for each child identified as having SEN. I don't know what the difference is. That's supplied up to 6,000 for pupils with SEN, not 6,000 for each child identified as having SEN. I don't know. That seems the same thing to me. Well, I don't get the distinction. But 6,000, well, they give 5,000 for neurotypicals, so it's an extra 1,000. Well, it's obviously not working because the teachers from very day one said they don't have enough money or time, and they needed an extra person to actually do one-to-one support. So maybe they should speak to their teachers, although as the strikes have been going on, 6 months now, Steve Barclay doesn't meet with them. Maybe that's the problem. For some pupils with SEND, needs can be met through reasonable adjustments without additional interventions. For others, more specific interventions are required. Some schools may experience a high number of pupils with complex SEN, and effective deployment of this limited funding can be challenging. Where this is the case, officers from our SEN service will offer support to schools to review the current allocation of funding, suggest ways that this could be more effectively used, I assume that should be, or discuss the possibility of requesting additional funding through time-limited inclusion grants. I assume grants is money you have to give back, is it? Unfortunately, the funding the Department for Education offers to East Sussex and other LA is not enough to cover the level of personalised funding you suggest for each pupil with a diagnosed SEN or significant physical or mental disability. Concerns about the level of funding available for SEN sports discussed at both regional and national meetings with various forums providing feedback to the DfE about this. Thank you for raising these concerns. I hope you feel reassured that we are equally committed to improving outcomes for autistic children, young people and adults and their families. I hope you also feel reassured that we are working with the school to support them to meet Aleena's needs. But they're not meeting Aleena's needs. That's the problem. That's why I had to write this. Specifically, you may like to read the East Sussex SEN Strategy 2022 to 2025 that sets out our education, health and social care and community voluntary sector providers and support services are working together to improve the experiences and outcome of children with SEND and their families. Yours sincerely, Alison Jeffries, Director of Child Services. So here's the one from Department of Education. Is actually from, it doesn't have a person's name. It's Send an AP Division Families Group. Dear Mr. Maguire, thank you for writing to the Department of Education and explaining about your daughter's education experience within mainstream schools. Thank you for sharing your ideas. We appreciate your thoughts. Apologies for the delay in our response and any inconvenience this may have caused. It's taken months just to write this back to me and tell me nothing. And you haven't done anything. We want all children, no matter what their SEN or disability, to be able to reach their full potential and receive the right support to succeed in their education as they move into adult life. Well, the only way they can do that is if they fund it, but they're not doing that. And not have all these delays of four terms worth of delays, well, 6 terms, actually a whole year of someone who's been clinically diagnosed. And I went to nursery and was told that we needed one but anyway, let's continue. I want to share with you what the government are currently doing on autism. The Department of Education has worked closely with the Department for Health and Social Care to develop a refreshed cross-government autism national strategy for autistic children, young people and adults 2021 to 2026, which was first published in July 2021. This recognised the process that has been made, as well as the challenges and priorities for reducing inequalities and enabling autistic people of all ages to have the same opportunities as everyone else to lead healthy, happy and fulfilling lives. Well, it's not working because the ADPR discriminates against SEN children and makes them wait a year before they get the funding that they need, unlike their counterparts, neurotypicals, who get the necessary funding that they need on day one. That's me. The new strategy has, for the first time, been extended to children and young people as well as adults. It is backed by the funding of over $74 million in the first year alone to improve the understanding in society, reduce diagnosed waiting times, improve access to and the quality of health and social care for autistic people. The department has also invested £600,000 into a pilot which looked to improve earlier identification of autism and other neurodiverse conditions. This led to the development of an electric neurodiversity profiling tool, ENPT, which helps schools identify children with autism and other neurodiverse conditions early so that they can put proven support mechanisms in place. This tool has been tried in the Bradford area and then we're expecting an evaluation report shortly. This is a waste of time because, well, it's got nothing to do with me because Aleena was already diagnosed by a paediatrician before she went to nursery. So even though they knew that she had this clinically proven condition, they still didn't do anything to help her. And the teacher's saying we need more help, more money. More broadly, in SEND, the newly published SEND and Alternative Provision Improvement Plan, gov.uk has got a link, has set out our vision to improve mainstream education through setting standards for early and accurate identification of need and the timely access to support to meet those needs. Well, it isn't timely because it takes a year. That was the whole point of my letter, that it takes a year for a neurodiverse child versus neurotypical, which is day one. What don't they get? The standards will clarify the types of support that should be ordinarily available in mainstream settings, who are responsible for securing the support and from what budgets. This will give parents confidence and clarity on how their child's needs will be met. It doesn't, not in practice. Schools and colleges are already expected to consider individual circumstances. Under the Children and Family Act 2014, mainstream schools must use their best endeavours to make sure a child or young person who has SEN, including autism, get the special education provisions they need. The SEN Code of Practice is clear that meeting the needs of a child with SEN does not require a diagnostic label or test. Instead, we expect teachers to monitor the progress of all pupils and put support in place where needed, including arrangements and funding, appropriate diagnostic tests where appropriate. Ultimately, local authorities are responsible for identifying and meeting the special educational needs of children and young people for whom they are responsibility. This includes ensuring they have a range of specialist provisions available. When deciding on provisions to be made for a child or young person with SEN, schools and local authorities must regard to the SEN Code of Practice. This is where all the problem is, because it doesn't work. It's just a time-wasting exercise, as all bureaucratic government things seem to be. The code sets out the need that all schools should apply a graduated approach. This is the problem, you see. which means identifying a child's needs, implementing appropriate support, and reviewing it regularly. Schools should also involve pupils and their parents at each of these stages, taking their perspectives into account and keeping them informed about what support is in place. The very first meeting of this graduated process, ADPR, everyone in the room said that Aleena needed support. The EHCP should have been done then, but it wasn't, because the SEND Code of Practice means you have to keep having these graduated reviews and the Department of Education's Universal Service contract brings together SEND-specific CPD and support for the school and FE workforce to improve outcomes for children and young people, including those with autism, through one program which aims to reach 7% of schools and colleges in England per year. The contract offers autism awareness training resources which aligns with all age autism strategies, and its ambition to improve autistic children and young people's access to education and support positive transitions into adulthood. Over 63,000 professionals have undertaken autism awareness training as part of a train the trainer model since the Universal Service Programme launched last year. There are also local information advice and support services, IASS, which can provide impartial advice about how the law and SEN, local SEN arrangements and support for children's needs. The service can also help with preparing the meeting with the school, local authorities or other agencies. You can find their contact details for the local service through this web link. And go web link council, council or for disabledchildren.org.uk information advice and support services network. Thank you again for taking the time to write to us. I hope this information is informative and useful. Yours sincerely, SEND and AP Division Families Group. Well, it wasn't. It's funny, if you haven't read my letter, well, I read it out, it'll be on the link on the top. And, well, I don't know, they did their usual copy and paste, telling about all the things they're doing. Well, that's not what I wanted to know. I'm telling you, I'm going through the process that you are telling me about, and it doesn't work. And I'm telling you how it doesn't work by personal example, but you're not coming back and arguing or saying that it's wrong or it's right or anything like that. I said it was discriminatory, and they still didn't pick up on that. I was worried about using that. That's why I said, it was indirect, because I can't prove it's direct. But the process certainly doesn't seem to help children with SEN. The problem is, this is what you've got to understand. Children with SEN are already going to be more likely going to be behind neurotypical children whose schools and syllabus have been designed for over the years. And so what you want is something quick. Well, I mean, if these children have already been diagnosed by a clinician, which majority of them have, then it should be on day one. And you're going to pick some up later on, yeah. But the problem is that it needs to be quick, not a year. A year of Aleena waiting for support for the teachers. Every single time we meet them at the gates, every ADPR meeting, they tell us the same thing, that we need support, we need money, we need someone to do one-to-one with Aleena so she can reach her potential. For a year. How is that process? How is that a good process? Imagine if you made neurotypicals go through that process. No one will get taught, would they? No one would. That's why it seems like I don't know. I don't understand why it has to be such a long process. Because in that first meeting, it doesn't take a year to know what Aleena needs or to plan what Aleena needs, or any SEN child. You can, 6 weeks I think is long enough. It's basically the whole point of this process is they're hoping the children will fall out of it, or somehow they will not need the 10,000 or whatever money. That's the thing. They don't really want to give the money, or they don't have enough money. So they've designed a system that takes time, hoping that they won't need the money. And the fact is that you have to, it's not like, well, we know this child has autism. We know this child's going to need support. Well, no, you have to prove it. It's like you have to go through a court case. Like you have to provide all these documents, and all these psychologists and paediatricians have to see them and write reports for 20 weeks to prove that your child needs help. I don't know. How can they sit there with this power and be so disingenuous. Anyway, take care, Daisy. God bless and peace.